Hi everybody, my name is Sherrie Maricle. My friend Marcia Gallus and I were talking about single stroke technique the other day, and I told her I would make a short video to show her and everybody else the way that I practice these. There are so many ways to practice this technique. Obviously, a crucial technique and aspect to all genres of drumming. So whatever genre you love, please look on the internet because there's countless thousands of incredible drummers sharing their advice and ideas on how to practice these. And I'm going to show you the way that I think about them. But if you don't like the way that I do it, then please just disregard it and find something that works for you, because all that matters when we're developing technique is that it aids us to create the music that we hear in our heart and heads and allows us to be as spontaneous and creative as possible. So that's what technique is for. Anyway, I think about single strokes as coming from four places, four joints on our body. If you're playing very loud and depending where you're moving on the kit, you could be using your shoulder, you can be using your elbow, your wrist, or your fingers, and all of those things in combination. I'm going to focus on two of those joints at the moment. Wrist, crucial, and fingers. So I use a bounce stroke, a very, very loose stroke that relies heavily on the rebound of the drums and or the pad. It's like dribbling a basketball. That's all wrist movement. I hold the stick very loosely. I'm thinking like I'm bouncing a ball. All wrist. Other people hold the stick tighter. You can even hear it's a much different sound even. I feel like I could do this because I'm bouncing and the head's rebounding a very long time. This with a tight grip, I can already feel the tension coming up my forearm. So that technique doesn't work for me. So I'm a bouncer, everybody. I encourage you to try it. All right, so that's simply that, just a loose wrist. I play traditional grip 90% of the time. So that way, the movement of the wrist is like opening a door. My fulcrum is in the web of my thumb, and my thumb is slightly resting on the knuckle of my index finger, so the stick doesn't fly out of my hand. But again, it's a very, very loose grip. This is very slippery in here. Other than it's not slippery, it's loose. That's the loose bounce stroke instead of... I don't play that way, that's why it's hard for me to demonstrate using a tighter grip. But whatever works for you, these exercises can be used nonetheless, no matter how you choose to hold your stick or how you choose to use the rebound. Okay, so that's a wrist stroke. You can't hold the stick too tight if you're going to use finger control. I highly recommend practicing finger control. Most of you probably know what it is and probably do it already. But the easiest way I can explain it, if you don't use it, is that basically, if you can do this in the air, just wiggle the stick between your two fingers. When you're playing matched grip, you can just take this movement of wiggling the stick and do that on your practice pad or your drum. Wiggle, 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 wiggle. And that's just my index finger and my thumb. Now you use the other fingers for support and control. My little finger does not rest on the stick when I use this technique. But anyway, that's finger control. Wrist, fingers, wrist, all loose and relaxed. With traditional grip, finger control in my left hand, I studied a lot of different techniques and I was kind of confused about it. And I studied with the great Mel Lewis in the late 1980s. And he told me that he just used his thumb, which even confused me more because it's like finger control, okay, thumb control. But anyway, Mel taught me this. It's just bouncing with your thumb. I'm just opening my hand so you can see it very clearly. It's just using your thumb, resting again in the web of my thumb. I'm just bouncing my thumb. So mostly when I use finger control with this grip, I use my thumb or a combination of my thumb and my index finger sometimes. Just this one finger. I've seen a lot of people do this with two fingers. I don't do that, but it's a great technique. Index finger or thumb work really well for me. Whatever works best for you. I've seen drummers do magical things with all of their fingers, like blaring fast. It's like, it's incredible. So there's so many different ways to approach traditional grip finger control. Find the one that works for you. Remember, music is all that matter. Chops by themselves are, I don't know, like learning a fancy, amazing language and having no one to speak to or something. I don't know. Anyhow, so we got the wrist, got your fingers. And there is a third technique that I use sometimes, not so much for singles. I use them for doubles. This technique for doubles all the time, a push-pull technique. Sometimes I use it when I'm playing a samba with my right hand on the ride cymbal. And I won't spend too much time on this, but it's wrist and then fingers. And then you just continue that like a perpetual motion. That way. And with your left hand, it's kind of like bounce, snap. Sometimes I think of it, bounce, snap, bounce, snap. But for doubles, I just, on a sidebar, that helps your doubles come out really, really strong and clear. Because you're snapping out the second note of the bounce. So it's really cool for doubles. Push-pull technique. Man, there are some drummers that are just, mind-blowingly awesome, particularly some Brazilian drummers I've checked out online. So investigate that. It's totally worth your time. All right, so I'm gonna do this exercise, and then I'm gonna do it at 3 different tempos, and hopefully you can play along with me if you like. It's all the basic subdivisions of the quarter note, starting with the quarter note. Now you can start with a whole note, but basically we're gonna start with a quarter note. So quarter note, eighth note triplet, quarter note triplet, eighth note triplets, 16th notes, 16th note triplets, then 32nd notes. Now you can do this exercise in any kind of phrasing you like. You can do it in 1-bar phrases, 2, 4, 6, 8, 12, 1,000, whatever feels good to you. Add dynamics to this, orchestrate these around the drum set. When you play it on your different drums, it's going to feel much different because the drum heads respond differently and rebound differently, and because your body is actually in a different position every time you hit a different drum. So it's important to practice all these things in all of the positions you might be, from the snare to the mounted or rack toms to your floor toms. This exercise is great too because it helps you get a very, very natural, intuitive sense of all these basic subdivisions. So when you're improvising and being creative during a fill or a solo, they automatically will feel really, really good as you practice them. So let's start at quarter note equals 80. That's a good, reasonable tempo. Here we go. I'll kind of shout out the subdivision so you can hear where we are and count along if you want. And like I said, add dynamics. Trying to determine which stick feels better in which hand. All right, here we go. Quarter notes. Now see what I'm moving? I'm wrist, but I'm also using my little bit of my shoulder because of this tempo. I'm trying to stay loose and relaxed and flowing. Now quarter note triplet. Triplet, 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 triplet. Eighth notes. Eighth note triplets. Sixteenths. Triplets. Relax, bouncy. All right, that was 80. Now, if you wanted to practice your hands separately, if any of that was giving you a little bit of trouble, you can isolate one hand, work on it. Okay, that hand feels good, that hand feels good. This hand feels, wait a minute, my hand's betraying me. If one of your hands does not feel as good as the other, then you need to isolate it and practice it just very repetitive. It's like developing any sort of muscle or neuron memory or whatever memory, whatever part of our body or physiology holds the memories of movement. you need to isolate that part and practice it. And you can't cram it. There's no shortcut. You just have to do this, you know, for 5 minutes without stopping at whatever tempo you pick. And I'm serious. I've practiced that myself if I'm working on something. Doesn't matter if it's like foot pedal technique or hand technique or whatever it is. I'm like, I am doing this without stopping for 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 2 minutes or whatever it is. And that's a great way to do that. Okay, here's this exercise again. I'm going to put the metronome on 90. Same exact thing. You know the subdivisions. So we're going to start with a quarter note again. Relaxed. Triplet, 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 triplet. Eighth note. Okay, that was at 90. Again, if you're having trouble, just isolate your hands, practice in terms of minutes. You can do it in a musical situation, like phrasing wise, but don't. A lot of times I see some drummers practice and make the mistake of doing a, oh yeah, man, I got it. Woo, we're ready. You can't, it's repetition. One analogy I always use is the classical piece by Ravel, Bolero. Depending on the tempo, that's usually around 17 minutes long, sometimes longer. And the snare drummer does the exact same thing. Everybody probably knows. In 3/4. That's all that the snare drum part is. And when I say that's all, I mean that with the utmost reverence, because to do that perfectly from like as soft as you can play to the full range of your dynamics over the course of 17 or so minutes is incredible technique and control. So, hey, you could always practice Bolero if you want as part of your single stroke development. Anyway, so let me do this for you one more time at quarter note equals 100. And here we go. And play along. Here we go. 4-bar phrases. Triplets, quarter notes. So, if you have any questions, you can email me or message me on Facebook, or try to contact me through my website, sherriemaricle.com or divajazz.com or 3divasjazztrio.com if you like. You know, I'm happy to chat about this technique as much as anybody. I'm still learning. We're all still learning together. So keep on playing, everybody, and stay safe, and I hope everyone's staying sane and swinging during these crazy times. So I hope I get to meet you all in person someday and, you know, share a few licks here and there. Alrighty. Thanks, Marcia. Bye-bye.